what's your email address? All right, so you should get an invite in your email and you can just join the team, and they'll ask you to reset your password too after that. Cool. All right, so it's 10:15, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So my name is Michael Hayward. I work at IT support at SCLO Center Region Library. I started a few years ago, and around the time I started, when they hired me, web development wasn't in my job description. It just so happened that one day I started working on a website, and now I'm kind of doing more stuff with it. So about 2-3 years ago, I didn't really have much experience either, so it just goes to show that if you put in the work, you can definitely accomplish, learning this kind of stuff. Just curious, has anybody here created a website before? Cool. So I'm just curious, what did you create and what did you use to create it? Cool, excellent. And, yep. Cool. So we can see that there's a lot of different ways to build websites, and I'm going to talk about a few of them to start with. All right, so probably the most popular web development tool that's gaining a lot of popularity right now are these drag and drop builder website tools. Things like Squarespace, Weebly, Wix, the new Google sites. All of those have gained a lot of popularity, and people are flocking to them because they're so easy to use. You actually don't need any coding experience whatsoever to build a website. As you can see here with the GIF, you just click an element, drag it around, and it kind of just repositions everything. There's excellent themes, and it also, excellent themes that are really nice, just out of the box. So you don't actually have to do any building besides just putting stuff on a page. Now, the downside to this is you don't really have a lot of control over the website. You can kind of create stuff, but once you want to start breaking out and doing more unique, customizable things, it gets a lot harder to do with these drag and drop builders. So another tool that people use are content management systems. These are things like WordPress, Drupal. There's another one called Joomla, but that one's not as popular. I think at some point, WordPress was 70% of the web, but that has definitely gone down. And what content management systems do is you can create a website, and then when you manage the website, all you're doing is creating content. You're not actively creating the website itself. So when you you can add a news item or an event item or a blog item, and so you just need to fill out those fields for those items, and you don't actually have to worry about creating the page, because that's what the content management system does for you. It takes your content and turns it into pages. So that's another tool that you can use. Another popular tool that has gained a lot of popularity with developers in particular are what are called static site generators. And these I find to be really interesting. So they're actually kind of like a content management system, but these do all the work before you actually go to the website. So for instance, people who don't know how content management systems work, a CMS has usually like a backend, like a PHP, and a database. And whenever you go to the website, the PHP code runs and it creates the website on the fly from information in the database. So that actually creates a lot of like entry points for hackers. So people can hack your website through PHP, people can hack your website through the database. So what static site generators can solve are solving these issues of taking out the PHP code and the database from your website. And what you're actually left with are just straight, flat HTML files. And this makes your website really secure. And it also makes your website really fast. Static sites, just like serving HTML websites itself, is probably one of the fastest ways for your website to load. So with a lot of developers have really liked this tool because they can create their website in a CMS-style way, but they don't have to worry about the upkeep of a database or having to upgrade to the newest PHP. So popular examples of this are Jekyll, Hugo, and Hexo. And I wanted to tell you like a particular use case for this. We use this for our Center County Reads site. It's a website we use for 4 months out of the year, and the content doesn't really change very much. So this is actually a really good use for it. Other good uses for it are if you have like a business page and you're not going to change business a lot. It's just kind of like an informational page. And then the next one is probably the hardest to get into, but is also the most customizable. And these are the web frameworks. These allow you to actually build what you want to build. So for example, Twitter was built originally, I think, with Ruby on Rails. And there's other frameworks out there. There's Django, there's Laravel is a popular one. But if you have a unique idea that you can't build with any of the other ones, and you want to start from scratch, then you want to use a web framework. Now, the downside to that is you're going to have to learn a whole lot of coding in order to be able to do something like that. So this definitely takes the most work, but you can create the most powerful websites with it. Okay, so the interesting thing about all of these website tools is they just allow you to create the website. The thing that they all have in common is they all serve exactly the same thing to your computer. So if I go to any website and I type in the web address, the website I get is always going to be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I say always, but really that's like, there's always an exception to this, and Flash and Silverlight, and there's like other various specific things that your browser may load. But for the most part, all websites are built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's kind of going to be like the foundation of your website. So really, it's going to be important to learn these basics, these foundational basics, in order to build the website, no matter what tool you use, because they're going to give you that foundation that you need. So what does HTML do for the website? HTML provides the structure. A lot of people say it's kind of the skeleton. And then the CSS provides the style, or the skin, the makeup. It makes it look pretty. And then the JavaScripts make your websites interactive. So when you go to a website and you click on something, like a button, and it does something and it's cool, that's JavaScript. All right, so let's build a fairly simple website together with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I had an idea for this, and I figured we make a website called Well Read, and that's going to be book reviews. So let's do a little bit of planning. What should our book review website have? Nope, that's not where I want to go. Okay. So, anybody have any ideas? Titles of books, okay. All right, title, cover art of books. What else should we do? Okay. Okay. Excellent ideas. I like all these. Rating system, excellent. So something like stars or something. Okay, cool. Any other ideas? Similar books, similar authors, okay. Anything else? Okay, well, I think this is a good start. We'll definitely start building this. And I think it gives us a lot of stuff to hit on. Okay. All right. So what we're going to be building it in is called Cloud9. And Cloud9 is what they call a web-based IDE. If you're not familiar with what IDE is, IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. And that's really just a way of saying a fancy text editor. Really, you could build a website in Microsoft Word. I really don't suggest you do that, though, because that would be kind of painful. But you could. You could write all the HTML and the CSS in Microsoft Word and then put it on a web server, and it would serve it just as if you built it in an IDE. But the reason we use IDEs for building websites is because they're going to provide us a lot of nice features. And you're going to see that when we get into Cloud9. The other nice thing about Cloud9 is you can actually use it for things besides just building websites. There's actually an article here, if you go to this link here, it's about a teen librarian who started a coding club at her library. And what she did is she had started her kids with Code Academy. And the kids quickly devoured all of the lessons that they had in Code Academy. And she needed some way for the kids to start creating unique things when they were at home and when they were at the library, when they came for club. And so what she found was Cloud9 was an excellent resource for that because it's cloud-based. They could work at home. They could work at the library. It's also collaborative. It's basically like Google Docs or Sheets, where you can share your workspace with other people. And multiple people can be editing the same workspace and the same files at the same time. And you can see those edits live. You can chat at the same time. So it's really a great collaborative space. And the best thing about this is that if you get on the education plan, it's $1 a month. And you can invite as many students as you want. So it's a nice, cheap way for your library to get started with this. And I also have a link here to the Getting Started page on Cloud9. We're going to be covering most of the stuff on there, but in case you wanted to share this with somebody else, that's why I put that link there. Okay. All right, so go ahead and log into Cloud9. And when you log in, what you're going to see is this Workspaces. This is kind of your dashboard. This is where you're going to have all your projects. Basically, what a workspace is a project. And then all you have to do is click this Create a New Workspace button. And we're just going to go ahead and create a new one. Now, you can name it whatever you want, but I think you have to use all lowercase letters. I tried to put uppercase letters in mine, and it didn't work. You can give it a short description. You can make it private or public. I think in our plan, all you can do is make public workspaces. And then down here, you can choose a template for the kind of workspace you want. So we're going to be choosing the HTML5 template because we're going to be building a website. However, you could also do things like Node.js, which is JavaScript programming language. You could build something with what's called a LAMP stack or PHP, Apache, MySQL. So if you wanted to build a website with PHP using a PHP framework, you have that too. You could get started with Python, and it has some basic Python libraries, so you can make games or just like Python scripts. Django is a Python-based web framework. It has Ruby on Rails, so if you wanted to use that as a web framework tool. It also has C++, which is a systems programming language, so you could start building something that you could run as an exe on your computer. You can even do a WordPress site in here. It has some tutorials. And then this blank one is just going to be a blank Linux thing, and you're going to have to set up all the stuff by yourself. So that's a little bit harder to get into. And I have no idea what this Harvard CS50 is. I'm guessing that they used it for some kind of class at some point. So you have a whole lot of options to choose from for Cloud9. We're just going to go, like I said, to HTML5 and then create workspace. And it's going to take a little bit. It's going to create basically your entire workspace. And then we're going to go through all the different stuff that you can do with it, kind of like a tutorial thing. While it's creating it, does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any problems with Cloud9? Yeah. Okay, great question. It's free to use outside of this, but you have to give them your credit card. So that's why I pulled you all into my plan, because that way you guys didn't have to sign up with your credit card. But they do have a free option, but in order to sign up, you do have to sign up with a credit card in case you ever need to upgrade. They do require that. Yep, and the plan I'm using for this only costs $1 a month. And that's for like a classroom environment. Yep. Okay, so it's finished making the container, what they call the container, that we're going to be running our website in. Here is going to be your text editing area. Right now they have just like a README open up to get you started. You can actually go ahead and close that. We don't need that open right now. We're not going to read through it or anything. So this is where you're going to be editing text in this central area right here. On the left-hand side, this is going to be your file system area. This is where you're going to be all your files that you're going to be using. So this is going to be like your HTML files, your CSS files, your JavaScript files. And when you want to open one, you can just double-click on it, and it opens it in this central area, the text editing area. Up here, we have just kind of like some basic file menu options. You can go in here and create new files. We can open files. We can save files. We can show file revision history, and we can go back in time and look at what files looked like previously. It's just going to be kind of like a regular text editor where we're going to have all these kind of keyboard shortcuts, so copy, paste, Control-Z to undo. Basically, kind of all of your standard shortcuts are available for you too. You can use find, next, previous, replace. So if you're familiar with Microsoft Word, all of those replace all, replace next, they are all available here too. And as you can see here, they actually list the same shortcuts. So you can hit Control F and do a find in the document. You can show different things with this View tab. So if you wanted to hide certain parts of the IDE, you could do that. Not going to worry too much about Go-To right now. That's a little bit more advanced stuff if we need it. Run would basically be if we wanted to run a program like a script. Tools allow you some more advanced stuff. And then window, you can make new windows. So if you want a new terminal window down here, you can do that with the window thing, with a window menu. And then over here, we have the preferences or settings that you can click on. And if you notice, mine looks slightly different than yours, and that's because I changed my theme. So what you can go here is click on this cog right here, and then go down to the theme. And you can go with like a flat theme that's white. Or you can, I find that a little bright, so I usually use the classic night theme is what they call. So you can change your theme color too if you prefer a different color. And that's how you can do that, by going to the cog here and then going to themes. And then if you just want to close that, it's just this X next to preferences. All right. So now I'm going to have you type in a command in the terminal, and we're going to pull in some files that we're going to need to make this website. If you have the presentation open, it's actually down here. We're just going to copy and paste it. If you don't have it open, you can just type it in. If you want to open the presentation, you can go to If you don't have the presentation open, you can go to a.sclo.org/webdesign, and that will take you here. And then go to slide 8, and in the speaker notes, what we're going to copy and paste and run is going to be right here. So we're just going to copy that with the Control-C, because Google doesn't let you right-click and copy. And then we're just going to paste it in the command line. And it's just going to pull in some files that we need. If you're curious what this is doing, Git is what's called a version control software. And what we're saying is we want some files from the web. Specifically, we want them from GitHub, which is a repository for hosting files on the web. So we're saying git, the program, clone, and then this repository on the web. And what it does is it's going to pull all those files in from that repository. So if you want to type it out, it's git space clone space, and then the web address is https://github.com/sclo/iLeadWebDemo. Anybody have any problems with that, or everything okay? If you do, let us know. Nathaniel's here, and he's willing to come out and help. All right, so after you run that, it actually pulled in this little extra folder right here. And if we click on the little arrow next to it, we can expand that folder and look at all the stuff it pulled in. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to highlight all of this stuff that's here, and I'm just going to drag it to the root folder, because I don't want to have to deal with that extra iLeadWebDemo folder. So I'm just going to drag it there, and it's just going to put all of them in this iLead project root folder. And then I'm just going to delete that iLeadWebDemo. I don't need it anymore. So once I pulled all those files out, I can get rid of it. If you accidentally deleted the folder and the files were still in there, you can actually just run this same command again, git clone, and pull those files back in. All right, so the file we want to open to begin with is this index.html file. And what we're going to do is we're going to click this little run button up here. And if you hover over it, it says run index.html. And so what this does is it starts up a web server, and it's going to start serving up this website. And now what we're going to do is go to preview, and we're going to live preview index.html. So on the left-hand side here, we have code, the HTML code for our website. And on the right-hand side, we have what the website's going to look like if somebody were to go to our website. The really neat thing about this is we can start typing stuff in, and we get live updates as we type it in. So I'm just going to make a header tag and then put in a title, and we're going to see it happen live. So as you can see, I typed in a header tag, I typed a title in there, and it just populated the title on the right-hand side automatically. So this is actually a really nice tool that Cloud9 gives you. A lot of web development tools don't do this. Some do. Some take extra steps to set up. But this kind of live preview is pretty neat. All right, so let's get into some basics of HTML. So HTML is the structure of the website. So HTML gives us tags we can use, or elements. So if you notice here, this is just kind of like a basic bare bones HTML page. At the top, you always have to declare what type of document it is. So it's just exclamation mark doc type HTML, and that appears at the top of every website. If you don't have to remember that. You can actually just find templates that will have that in there, or you can look it up online. And then you usually need an HTML tag to put all of your HTML stuff in. What's that? Oh, this side over here? So I will bring that up again. So I'm just going to close that. If you go to preview, live preview index.html, and it will pop up over here. The thing is, before you do that, you do need to make sure you hit the run button. So if preview doesn't let you, if it's like grayed out or something, then you have to hit run first, and down here it will say starting Apache. And if you see this down here, then that means that you can start previewing. Okay. Okay, so HTML is just a whole bunch of tags that are kind of in a tree structure. And I say tree, and you probably don't know what that means, but basically what that means is you can nest the tags in other tags. So here we have an HTML tag, and I'm just going to indent this for looks. But inside the HTML tag, we have a head tag. And inside the head tag, we have a meta tag. And inside the HTML tag, we have another tag. That's the body tag. And inside the body tag, we have the H1 tag. And then we have an ending body tag. And we can keep this going indefinitely, forever. We could put another tag inside the H1, and a tag inside that, and a tag inside that, and it just can nest indefinitely. And that's what a tree structure means. It just means that you can nest these tags forever. And you can have multiple tags that are called siblings. So for example, this head tag is what would be called a children tag to the HTML tag because it's nested inside of it. However, the head tag and the body tag are siblings because they're nested at the same level. That might be a little confusing, but the more you work with it, the more it'll make sense. Does anybody super confused by that? Okay. All right. So we can just keep typing. We can add more tags. So for example, we can add a paragraph tag or a p tag, and we can just start typing in. And then we can add other tags too. So we can put in images. An image tag needs something else too. So we can't just type in, I want a picture of a dog, and then put an ending image tag. Unfortunately, that's not how image tags work. So if we want to put in an image tag needs certain what are called attributes. So for example, an image tag has a source attribute, and that's where HTML is going to find that image. So all of the images, actually, I have some images here already in this image folder. So we can actually just reference this images folder and then reference the picture we want to show. So I'm just going to use logo.png, and you can see it just popped in that image into our website. So this is how you would declare an image tag, or how you pull an image in. We could change it to a different image. So we could pull in a different image by changing the image source. We could even reference an image outside of this file structure. We could say, I want to pull an image in from Disclose website. And I can just copy that image address, go back to my website, and put it in as the source. And now it's in the website. So the source for an image is where it finds that image to load. Mm-hmm. Yep, you could pull an image from the web from anywhere. So as long as it's on the web somewhere, you can pull it onto the website. Yep, exactly. Oh, and all you have to do, you can go to like any website. We can, I don't know if Google's logo, is this an image? Yeah, it's an image. So I can just copy Google's image address and then put it in my website. Oops, did I do that right? No, I put two quotes there. And I will say the image source for the URL has to be in quotes. I forgot to mention that, I'm sorry. So you just need an ending quote or beginning quote and an ending quote. And you can see it just pulled in Google's right, so I'm loading that website, that image onto my website right from their website. Now, that may get into like, there might be like issues as far as like using images and stuff. That could happen, but just for a demonstration, this is just kind of for demonstration. So other tags that are helpful, so we covered H tags or heading tags. That changes the size of your font. Paragraph tags, too, where you can put text inside of it. Other tags, let's say you want to make a link to a different website. You could use an A tag for that. And the A tag is another one that needs a special attribute or property inside of it. And where the image needed a source attribute, A tags or linking tags need href tags. And now I can just type in here in a link to any website I want. So I'm just going to put in School Library. And now you can see when I added that href tag, it turned blue. And now I can open this link in a new tab, and it just goes ahead and open our website. So A tags are what you would use to link between websites or between pages on your website. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a little bit more about structuring HTML. So if you notice here, we have a heading, and if we put our cursor inside next to this body, it kind of highlights this box. And this is because this is everything the body contains. If we put our cursor in this H1 area, this is everything that the H1 contains. And this is all the area that the H1 takes up. If we put it inside the paragraph, we get this box here too. And then here, you can see that this link actually only takes up a little bit of the page. All these other two tags took up the entire one. And that's because different tags function differently, and they take up different widths and sizes on the web page. And so that's where this HTML structure comes from. It comes from how you use these tags to structure your website. So this is actually Disclose website, but it doesn't look like our website. Let me just open up the other one. So this is our website with CSS. This is our website without CSS. So remember how HTML provided the structure? This is the structure of our website. We have images, and you can see it looks very similar to what we're building. It has links, It has H tags. It has images. This one's actually called an input field or tag. This is a button tag. This has another link. This is a list of links. It has more images in a list. And then it has more links. So you can see it doesn't look very pretty without the CSS, but it does have that structure. So when we add that CSS, that's what makes our website look like this. It turns, so I'm just going to take a very small part and show you. So this is our main menu right here. This is the HTML structure of it. But when we add CSS, it turns into this black bar up here. Okay? So in order to make our website look good, we have to add CSS to it. So CSS will add the style. And CSS takes a while to learn, so we're going to cheat. And we're going to use what's called a CSS framework to make our website look pretty. And I'm going to pull up the one that I'm going to use for this demonstration today, but there's a lot of different frameworks. For example, there's Bootstrap, there's Foundation. The one we're going to be using today is called Semantic UI, and I like it because it's really easy to use. It's beginner friendly. I think this is the website address for it. Okay, so this is Semantic UI. Normally what you would do is you would download their CSS file and you would add it to your project. But remember when we pulled in stuff earlier? Well, I had you pull in semantic CSS. So that's already taken care of. But that's what you normally have to do. You could create a folder called CSS and add it there, or you could just add it to the root. It doesn't really matter. So this is what we're going to be using. I would suggest you open up this as a tab in your browser, because we're going to be pulling code from this. Because we're going to be reading the documentation and they're going to be telling us how to build their components, which is what we're going to be using to build our book review website. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll learn how to import semantic CSS to our website. All right, so I'm just going to get rid of some of the stuff here. Actually, I'll just leave that in there for now. So I didn't really talk too much about this head part yet. If you notice, all of the content we've been putting in has been in the body, and that's because any content you want on your website goes in the body. That's the content that's served. The head part, not to be confused with the header. I know a lot of people say, oh, this is the header of their website. That's not the same thing as head. Head, anything you put in the head isn't displayed on your website. It's kind of content that you need to be loaded. So this is where you would put CSS and JavaScript files. So we're actually just going to add a tag here. And the tag we're going to use is called link. And we need to add an attribute to it called relationship. And we're going to call it a style sheet. CSS stands for cascading style sheet. So that's why the relationship is a style sheet. And then we need to add the pointer, this href, that goes to where the CSS is. And if you notice, we had to reference the folder it's in first, so we have to type CSS, and then the file we want to load. So it's going to be css/semantic.css. And you can see instantly all of our stuff changed. And that's because it changed the font of all of our stuff, of all of our tags in here, just automatically. And I can just very quickly delete everything here, and it goes back to normal, and I can add it back again. All right, so now at this point, I'm gonna start looking at their documentation and going, okay, we need to build a review part. Part of our website needs to be a review. And it needs to have a title of the book, it needs to have an author, it needs to have cover art, it needs to have a paragraph review, an author of the review, we need some buttons, a rating system. So I'm going to start looking around on their website for something that I can kind of like start to see how I can fit these things together. And then on the left-hand side here, they have these things called views. And we can take a look at a few of them. We can look at advertisement. And look at how they look. So this is an advertisement. They're just kind of rectangles, banners, half pages. This doesn't look like something that we could use for this. So I'm just going to go to the next one, card. Looks like a card has like a picture to it. It has a name. It has kind of like this sub area, some place for text, and then like a bottom part to it too, like a little footer. This might be something we could use. Let's look at comments. Comments kind of have like a little image over here, a name, some kind of date that we could use, some text, and then a reply button. That might be something too. A feed. I clicked on comment again. All right, so feed looks like it has, once again, kind of an image on the left, some text in the middle with some other text over here that's kind of slightly lighter. It does have this nice little like button down here, so that might be something that we want to use too. And then let's look at item. So it looks like item has an image to the left. It has a header, a description. It has a place for a paragraph with additional details next to it too. We can put some content in here. It looks like, so for this one, for example, we can have a list of items where there's a picture over here, a title with some subtitle, paragraph of text. So I kind of like the way that item looks. So I'm going to give it a try on our website. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to find this kind of, I'm going to find the way one of the layout looks. And this button right here called View Source, I'm just going to click on it. And what that does is it gives me all of the HTML that I need to copy and add to our website. So I'm just going to basically copy everything inside of here. So all I did was clicked on the View Source button up here, and then I scrolled down. And if you want to copy the code, next to this example button right here, that will copy all the code in here to your clipboard. And we're just going to go back over here and paste it inside the body. Okay. All right, so let's focus on just this part for right now. This part that starts with div class equals item. This is going to be one item in our list of items. This is going to be one review. Okay? If we put our cursor inside this div tag, you can see that box outline of all the stuff that's in the div tag. So we have this UI small image, and right now it's not pointing to any of our images. So let's fix that. So let's take this image source tag, and let's point it to one of our book images. Let's point it to delicious. Or you can pick another one that's there. You can use any image that's there. Okay? And it pulled in the image. And now let's change this header. So the Arrow Valley Camp is wrong. We want to put the title here. So let's type in delicious. And now in this metadata, let's get rid of these two tags and then just put in the author's name. And the author's name for delicious is here. So if you go to this review.yml file, I have some kind of like metadata for review that you can just pull out and put it into your website. Oops, that's not what I want to click on. Let me go back to here. All right. So now we have the author name there. And inside this description tag, let's go ahead and add the review. You could type one in, or if you want, you can just copy the one that we have here. So I'm just going to copy the review that we have there and paste it into here. I'm just going to kind of slide this over a little bit so we can see what it looks like. All right. So we took one of these items, we took the image and we converted it to one of our images. We changed the header to the title of the book. We changed what they call over here, what they call the metadata, and we put the author's name in there. And then in the description, we put the review. And now we kind of have the layout of a review, right? So we can repeat this step with the other items in the list and get kind of the same thing. So I'm just going to go quickly to the next item. So here's the next item in the list. You see if I put my cursor inside there, it puts a box around it. I can change it to a different image. And I'm just going to pull some data about that into here too. All right. And now I have two items for my review website. Good question. This works exactly like Google Docs, so it saves as you go. Yep, that's a great question. Right, any questions about this? No questions? Does everybody have this? No? Okay. Okay. Does anybody have this? He does? Okay, cool. Cool. Does anybody need help with this? 3-day lecture? Okay.
You know where to find me.
Okay, so if you're curious how this works, like how does all this magical stuff just happen? Like we just put in one file and copied some code and it just all magically made it look good. And if you're curious how that works, it's because of these attributes we're putting on these tags. So this class item tells the website, hey, this div tag needs some CSS applied to it. And this CSS is in this semantic.css file. So if we did a search for item, or dot item, so you can see there's going to be rules in here for CSS for how it displays the stuff. And obviously a lot of work went into the semantic UI to build this CSS, and which is why it's a lot easier to start with the CSS framework and play around with it. Just kind of copying and pasting this code and seeing what it looks like when you make changes. So for example, I can take this image, and let's say I want the image on the right-hand side and not the left-hand side. I can take this, cut it, and here's the content. I can put it after the content. And what it does is it puts the title and the author in the review, and it puts the image after it. And for example, on this side, it puts the image on the right-hand side. So all this is handled behind the scenes with the CSS framework. And you can make all these small, tiny changes to make it look different. Okay? All right, so what else do we need to add to our review? So we have the title, the author of the book, we have the cover art, we have a paragraph review. We also have the author of the review in there too. So let's say we want to add a link to the book in our catalog. What we can do is we can come in here to buttons, and we can find a button we like and use that. I am particularly fond of the conditional buttons, the or. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to copy the code for it. I'm just going to put it right at the end of the content. So after the description, I'm just going to pop this button in. And we're just going to change the way the text is. I'm going to have a borrow here and a buy. And now what I've added is a button to the end of the review that will link them to borrow the book or buy it. I would normally have to add the links in here too. Right now, if I click this button, it's not going to do anything. But that would just be a very simple way of finding in the documentation an example of what it looks like, and then just adding it to the website. Okay. Now let's say I want to change the color of one of these buttons. They also provide documentation for that too. So if I scroll up a little bit, it gives me some extra classes that I can add to the element. So for example, a blue button is called a primary button. A secondary button is black, a positive button is green. So we have these different colors that we can use. We could also use one of these different colors. So we could just add a color in. So let's say we want to make the borrow button orange. So we'll just take this orange, we'll come in here to the button, put in orange, and the button changed to orange. And that's kind of the magic of this CSS happening behind the scenes. Just by adding this class to it, it tells CSS, I want this button to be orange, and it makes it orange. And my screen just turned off. Okay. All right. All right, and then the last thing we'll add is this rating system. This one's a little bit harder to add because there's a lot of steps to it, so I'm just going to go ahead and add it on this one so you can see kind of how I do it. So they actually provide in the semantic UI modules, and they have one for ratings that have these awesome stars. So I'm just going to copy the code for this, and I'm going to add it after the author. And the difference between modules for this CSS framework and like regular elements is the fact that they're not normally contained inside just like the regular semantic CSS. So we have to actually add extra style sheets and some extra stuff to get it to work. So we're just going to add another style sheet. This one will be for the rating. And then we're also going to add some JavaScript to make this work. All right. And now we're just going to add a bit of JavaScript magic to get this to work. And then if it worked, we should have some magic. Oh, whoops, I know what I did. All right. Just that doesn't seem to be working right now. Okay, we'll just take that off right now. Okay. All right, so now we've kind of made a template. We have what a template for what our book review site could look like, one of the items in our review site. So then what we would do is we could take this template and use it in one of our website tools that we discussed earlier, like a CMS or one of our static site generators or one of our web frameworks, and we could kind of like make this generic so that we wouldn't need to go in here and type in the title for each one. But instead, we would have some kind of placeholder title that our CMS would then replace with a title for each one, and it would populate all these automatically. And so, for example, the images 1, 2, we would replace with a placeholder that says this is the link to the image. The same with the author. We would replace that with the generic one too. With the generic review, this would get replaced. Oops. And then the links for these buttons for borrow or buy we would replace also. And then once we have that template, we could use it in one of our frameworks. Okay. So any questions about that? Any questions about kind of websites in general? All right, so the next tool I will show you is called the Web Inspector. And the Web Inspector is really handy. Has anybody used the Web Inspector before? A few people? All right. Well, you don't need to be a whiz to use the Web Inspector. So if you got lost on that last part, sorry. But this Web Inspector is pretty easy to use. So I'm just going to go to a website. You can go to any website you want. You can go to your library website. You can go to Google. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right-click anywhere on the screen. And have you ever seen this? If you ever right-clicked before, then you've seen this little inspect at the bottom. And when you click inspect, it opens up kind of this scary window. It's pretty scary at first, but once you get used to it, it makes a little bit more sense. So what this opens up is, it opens up the website. It opens up the source code for the website you're on. And just like before, when we put our cursor inside areas and it highlighted them for us, the Web Inspector does the same thing. So you can highlight certain areas of the Web Inspector and see where that content is. And you can see how that content's formed. And the fun thing is about this, you can actually make changes to any website you visit just by using the Web Inspector. So if I wanted to change the text of a button on our website, or change any text, if I wanted to change scroll highlights, I can just right-click on scroll highlights and inspect it. And we can see it's an H2 tag. It has some attributes, a class. But I can actually just click inside of here and type in some and now it's actually changed the content on the web page itself. And you might be like, whoa, did I just change somebody else's website? And the answer is no, you didn't. What you've changed is, yep, your page, only your copy of the website. So if you want to think about it like this, when you type in the web address at the top of the bar, a web server hands you a copy of the website. So it's basically like going to, it has a form, it goes to a copier, and then it gives you the form, and now you can do whatever you want with that form, and it's not going to affect the original. And that's the same thing with this, is you can use the Web Inspector, and you can go in here and start making changes to websites. And of course, if you tell a kid that they can do this, the first thing they're going to do is going to be something like this. They're just going to delete everything, because that's what a kid's going to do. But you can show them, hey, even if you delete everything, if you refresh the page, you're requesting that form again, and it brings it all back as the original. So one of the things this is handy for is, whoops. Have you ever been on a website and you start doing something? Oh, is this not going to do it? I wonder if somebody's logged into Facebook. Nope. Oh, my go-to example is gone. Oh, there it is. Okay, so have you ever been to a website before and you get something like this? Have you ever gotten like a pop-up that just pops up and blocks your entire view of the website? Well, this is just an element on the website. So we can inspect this element, and here we see as we hover over it, it's just this div. Or maybe it's this div. So we just kind of have to hover over these divs until we kind of figure out, maybe it's this one. And now when we delete that div, it's gone. And now that pop-up's gone. And now you can browse this website without that pop-up anymore. Yeah, so some websites you can get around the paywall, but mostly I use it to get around annoying pop-ups on websites. So if you ever go to a website and they have a really annoying pop-up that's blocking your view, just kind of right-click on it and inspect it and start deleting stuff. So for example, if I just deleted this first one right here, I can't really see very well because there's something else blocking it. And so you can just kind of start deleting stuff. And if you delete too much stuff, if you just accidentally delete too much stuff, for example, I just deleted the content on the website, all you have to do is do a refresh. And it just gives you back that original web page again so that you can try again. Try again to get rid of that pop-up. So that's a nice handy trick that you can show other people if people ever, on your public computers and they go, oh, this website's so terrible, I can't get around this pop-up, and you're just like, go ahead and right-click on it, and we'll just remove it. So obviously, this can be abused in certain ways. So for example, I can go in here and technically edit what this person says. And then I could take a screenshot of it and share it on social media and say, hey, look at what this person said. Don't do that. That's not very nice. Also, people will be able to call you out on it because the original website says what it originally does. So if you ever show anybody this, you can also mention that to them. The fact that, hey, if you do this, people may believe you for a bit, but in the end, the original site is going to be the original site, and people can go look it up themselves. So, any questions about the web inspector? Anything I covered so far about the web inspector? It's pretty cool to be able to do stuff like this. One of the things, specifically, one of the things that we use this for in our library is on Access PA. When we print out, and in Share It specifically. So in Share It, when we print out those ILL requests, our ILLers were having problems reading the printouts after they print out because the text was too small. So we go in and we make those texts bigger using something similar to this. So, for example, if I want to make this text bigger, I can come in here. I can go into the style, and I can increase the font size. And now that text is really big. And they also requested that it had a background color of yellow. So any website you go to is kind of like a playground. You can just go inside of there and use the inspector and just start editing things. Oh, that's a good point. I didn't mention that, but that's an excellent point. So what she said was, can you go to a website and inspect the website and swipe the code? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can. You can swipe all the code.
All the HTML and CSS not necessarily create.
Right.
Yep.
You have the images too, right? And that way you can make a mock and see the site if you want it.
Yep. So if you swiped, so that's a good point. Images are a little bit weird. It depends on how they host it. So for example, this image, if you swipe the code, this image would continue to work. Because it's what's called an absolute path. So if I copy this address here and paste it in, it's always going to go to this image. However, if the image was structured in a way that it was called relative, so for example, the way we structured them in our website, how it's not an absolute path. If we wanted to make an absolute path, we would have to be https // and then we would have to have our website in here. Website.com/images/delicious. That's an absolute one, because we're giving it the entire address. But a relative path just means fill in the first part for me. So if you swipe this code and started hosting the website yourself, it's going to try to look for that image on your website. And you're not hosting that image unless you copied it and put it on your web server. So you'd have to go in there and change the image to be their absolute path to get it to work. That's another good question. That's another good point about if you could swipe all the things, some images would work, some images wouldn't. But that's another good point about seeing how things work. So for example, if you're curious, if you see like an interesting, I don't know if Amazon still has it, let me see. I think they got rid of it. Okay, so let's say you like this carousel and you want to see how it works. You can kind of right click and you can inspect the carousel. And so this is an image tag. This is a link. So if you click on this, this will link you to where they want you to go. And I'm just going up the tree, just going up these elements, trying to find where the source of this is. And here's what's called, and I'm just going to look at this class right here, and the classes are very descriptive. And this is a carousel card. And a carousel is just like a scroller of images. So this tells me, this part right here, this says a list item, LI. That's a list item tag. The class tells me that it's a card, so it's one card of the list item. This is another card. This is actually the card previous for it. So if I actually go back one and hover over this, it's this one. And then if I go further, here's the carousel. Here's the carousel viewport. Here's the carousel that centers it in the center of the page. Here's the carousel left button. And if we scroll down further, we would find the carousel right button. And then here's some more parts about the carousel. So if I just wanted this carousel, I would have to find, and here's some more parts about the carousel. We can see here's a data carousel option. So a lot of work went into making this carousel. And it's probably actually a lot of bit of code that runs by itself. So I would have to go in here and I'd have to find all the elements that make up this carousel. I'd also have to find all the code that makes it work. So I'd have to find all the CSS and the JavaScript code. And for that, I would have to do even more digging. I would have to go under something like sources. And I'd have to say, okay, where's their JavaScript? So I would have to go through everything in here, trying to find their JavaScript files. This is a lot of work. So swiping stuff isn't that easy, but it's possible to do with a lot of work if you wanted to find it. It might actually just be easier to build it from scratch or to make a different carousel. But the Web Inspector is a very powerful tool that gives you a lot of different ways to look at websites. I'll show you one more thing that the Web Inspector can do. So performance-wise, I'm just going to open up this network tab. And then this is going to show you everything that the page loads and how long it takes it to load. So if you're curious how quickly your website loads, or if you want to do performance testing, this is where you want to do it. So I typed in our website, and if I scroll up here, this is the first thing that loads. It's just kind of like it's just actually all of that website code, all that HTML. That's all this is here. So if I went back to this elements page, this right here would be exactly the same thing that we see here. Because that's the first thing that the website sends you. It sends you the website. And then what happens is the browser goes through all of the stuff up here, all these link style sheets and all these script sources, and it has to load all of that stuff. So if we start looking down through here, we can start seeing all the other stuff it loads. Here's a CSS file. Here's another CSS file. Here's a JavaScript file. Here's some more JavaScript files. And some more JavaScript files. And you can see there's a whole lot of stuff that this website loads. And here's the images it's loading. So every time you have an image tag, it needs to load the image web source. It needs to load the image source from the website. And so what you can see here is what they call the waterfall, or kind of like the things as they come in, as your browser is requesting them, and how long it takes them to load. So if I just hover over, let's see if I can go here, timing. So if I click on here and go to timing, it actually tells me the important part here is the time to first bit, or how long it took for the response from the website. So I typed in www.skilllibrary.org, and from the time I hit enter to the time the website got back to me was less than a second. It was actually 77 milliseconds. And then all the rest of the time, it was loading all of these resources for the website. And you can see here, longer bars mean that it takes longer. So this part right here, this little GIF that it loads, actually took the longest out of everything. And this probably held up our website the longest. So we can take a look then and take a look at that GIF and why did it load slowly? How could we speed it up? So this network tab you could use to just kind of like use it to see how your browser is communicating the website. It's also handy to see if your browser is sending data while you're on the website. So let's say you're on a website and you notice that it's always loading. It just kind of has a little bar that spins all the time. That means that it's still loading or doing something. Let's see, I think Villanova's website does this, their catalog. Library. Fine. Yep, okay, so we see here, it's spinning, and it's loading stuff, and it's spinning, and then it's finished. Let's see if it does it. I don't know if it still does it or not. Let's actually do a search. Okay. maybe this isn't going to do it. Did it before. Okay, they must have changed their website since I last looked at it. But what it was doing was it had what's called a keep alive function going. So the JavaScript on your browser was sending stuff to the server telling it, hey, I'm still on your web page. And they were just communicating with each other. And you can actually see in real time, oh, there it was, there it goes. So we can see in real time, they're just kind of communicating with each other. And we can see that it's just sending these little requests between the two. And we might see another one pop up in a little bit. That's how the website's built. It's just kind of to make sure that everything that's on the website stays up to date. And here's another one that just popped up. Just these little requests to each other to make sure that the website's up to date. So you can actually, with this network tab, you can monitor how your browser is communicating with web servers. And you can actually kind of spy on what they're communicating about. So for example, I could click on this request, and I can preview it, and I can see all the information that's being sent between these two websites. So we can see that what this is actually using for is for if you're going to use their chat server. And it's showing the status of the chat server. And it just kind of updates it. They're just talking to keep that chat server up. All right. So I think that covered a whole lot in a short period of time. I'm sorry I lost some of you in the Cloud9 demo, building the website. I do encourage you to, at least use the web inspector. Make changes to websites, try it out, see what you can do, see how you can break things, see how you can improve things. Try to make things better for people. If you're interested in more about how you can improve websites yourself, there's a tool called GreaseMonkey. And what that tool does is you can write JavaScript to run on any web page, your own custom JavaScript. So let's say you want to make an element bigger on a certain web page. You could write some JavaScript and then use GreaseMonkey to make that content bigger on the web page. What I use GreaseMonkey for is removing those annoying pop-ups on certain pages. So I go in there and I write little scripts that as soon as the pop-up pops up, GreaseMonkey will remove them, so I don't have to go through and do that inspect element and then find the element and then delete it. So that's a tool. That's another tool you can use too. If you're interested in more about web development, there's a whole lot you can learn and a whole lot you can play with. There's a very nice, what's called a roadmap for being a developer that I have linked on one of the final slides. So it's been updated for 2017. Maybe you don't want to be one, but maybe you know someone who does, so you could give this to them and share it with them. Basically, it's kind of just like a flow chart of how you can learn web development. So basically, you want to choose your path. You can choose a front-end or a back-end developer. It gives you a lot of tools that you can learn, things like Git, SSH. And so if you choose front-end, they have a nice front-end flowchart right here. We actually were working on some front-end stuff today. We covered some HTML and CSS. Not a whole lot, I'm sorry, but not a whole lot of time to cover it. And they also encourage you to learn JavaScript too, because In these days, websites are expected to be super responsive, interactive with people. You can't just have a static website anymore and have people be content with it. You have to add that interactivity so that they can click on stuff, and stuff happens, and wow. So then it gets more into the complex stuff. We went a little bit into learning about a framework and the responsive web. A lot of frameworks are already responsive, so you don't have to worry too much about that. But definitely thinking about mobile design is something that is in here. And then if you want to learn about JavaScript, there's a whole ecosystem in JavaScript. You could spend a whole month learning about all the type of JavaScript that there is. I'm not going to go through this entire thing, but you can see there's a lot to learn. And if you're interested in this kind of stuff, then this is a nice, a nice list of resources, or not necessarily resources, but a nice guide to get you started. Conversely, there's the other side to web development is called the back end, and that's kind of like the stuff that builds the web pages. Things like WordPress would be kind of a back end that also builds the front end. But there's also other backends too, things like Ruby on Rails, Django, which we talked a little bit about, these frameworks that you can build stuff with. And then a whole lot of other stuff that you can use, like databases and search and learning about web servers. And there's just a whole lot more that you can learn about web servers and stuff. So if you're interested, or if somebody else is interested, definitely share this with them, because this is a great place to get started as far as like all the stuff that you can do on the web. If you want to start smaller, have a more kind of like structured approach to developing, things like Khan Academy and Code Academy are also great resources. I actually used Khan Academy to start learning about SQL databases, and it was very helpful to just go through those lessons and learn. All right, so that's it. You did it. You made it through the talk. Great job. I want you guys to give yourselves a round of applause for listening to me speak for an hour and 45 minutes or something like that. So go ahead and applaud for yourselves. Thank you very much for sitting here listening to me. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, anything at all, you can always email me. I'd be glad to get back to you. If you're building a website and you want somebody to help you with it, I would be glad to help. If you just want some comments or critiques, I would be glad to do that too. Or if you have somebody who's interested in web development and you want to refer them to a source for web development, you can send them to me. I don't know everything, but I will try my best to answer them, and if I don't know, I will certainly try to forward them to a resource that will help. So, does anybody have any other questions about anything? No? All right, that's it. Thank you very much.